We've got more than 50 in the room, including Canadian Robot Lady. So we will get started. Thank you very much, everyone. And it's 33 degrees here. The sun's actually out, and the snow in my driveway is melting. Got about maybe an inch or so, but it's not much. In fact, I didn't even bother shoveling any of it except for on the walk, just because I was worried it was going to ice over. Hey, Johnny Knoxville's in the room. JJ CEO 40's here. Hey, Daniel Kester, how are you, my friend? Mindbend. J-Duds 100. Jared Draper. And Johnny Knoxville points out it is, in fact, 30 degrees in Bad Axe, Michigan. Mostly sunny, which is pretty much what it is here, too. I got 33 degrees and mostly sunny. A couple hours south of Bad Axe. And Canadian Robot Lady, zup. Dwayne Buck, greetings, Steve from Spokane, Washington. One of those place names I've learned to pronounce properly because I know that most people say Spokane, and I believe it's Spokane. I hope I'm right. And Dixie Champagne's in the room, as is JP. Good morning. Hello, JP. Johnny Knoxville says I may dual cast the Steelers game along with Lehto's Law live Christmas edition. Here's the big one, though, is that Finland is playing in the IIHF World Junior Championship. They got a game, I believe, at 2 o'clock my time. Finland is playing, and right now, Finland is rocking it in the World Junior Championships in hockey. For those of you who aren't following this, there's a lot of other stuff going on these days, but there's some great hockey, and the Finns usually do very, very well. So I'm wearing my Finnish hockey shirt, which, by the way, is also the symbol that's on my business card. So don't tell them. I think that might be a copyright infringement or trademark infringement. Toby Kenobi, good afternoon. Mark Doherty, happy last live of 2020. It's a tongue twister. Happy last live. Robin Lewis Brown, hello from Maryland to all. And to you, my friend. Thank you very much for checking in. GP and Haya. Tim McHugh, go Pack Go. Yeah, for those of you who are just suckers for punishment, if you follow the Detroit Lions, I watched a little bit of their game yesterday. Tampa Bay was in town, and normally we don't care about Tampa Bay, except, of course, now they got Tom Brady at quarterback. And they were putting on a show that as Tampa Bay was. It was so humiliating for the Lions. They just got slaughtered. It was insane. It was just, Tom Brady with the Buccaneers is not quite what he was a couple of years ago with the Patriots. Didn't matter. The Lions have got like the worst defense in all of sports, not just football, all of sports. Brett D, happy holidays from Texas. Daniel Kester says, don't forget you can't show real money on camera. I got a corner of a $100 bill right now on camera, but it's kind of hard to see. Bead Demon, good morning. Steve from Kenmore, Washington. Thank you for checking in, my friend. Knife Collector, one of the most interesting channels on YouTube. Thank you for all the time I've spent here. Well, thank you for doing that. I appreciate that. And by the way, Don Store from Southern California, home of the late KMET, a well-known, historically important and significant radio station in California. I'm reading a book right now on the history of radio programming. And KMET gets mentioned quite a bit. Robert Odell says, wow, you got the WRIF sticker already. Miracles never cease to amaze. Hey, Robert, that sticker came like 3 days ago. It was on the set 3 days. I brought it right in. So when I was in high school, we had WRIF, WABX, WLLZ, and WWWW, or W4 as it was known. We had 4 album rock stations for a brief period of time, 4 rock and roll stations. WRIF is the only one that's still around. And sadly, for those of you in Michigan, you might recognize the name Dick Kernan. Dick Kernan passed away this past week. He was a teacher at Specs Howard School of Broadcast Arts, and he also was the first program director of WRIF. And he's the one who hired Arthur Penhallow, for instance. So he was a good friend of mine. And I went to Specs back in 1981, which is where I learned how to use this thing. And over the years, I stayed in touch with the guy. He was just a great guy. And anytime I had questions about media, radio, television, or anything, I would call him and he'd talk to me. And even better yet, if he saw me pop up in the news, he'd call me. Say, hey, Steve, I saw this article. Great. Congratulations. So he was a great guy. He passed away. And so it's a very, very big loss for the community, particularly radio, but generally speaking, broadcasting in southeastern Michigan. Everybody knew Dick Kernan. He was the guy. He was the man. Tiger Stripes, WWWW. That's hilarious. Yeah, it was. W4. Remember the show Make Me Laugh? It was on TV a long, long time ago. I believe Gallagher was on there one time, and he came out pretending to be a disc jockey, and he says, "I'm from WWWW," and he thought he was joking. And somebody pointed out to me that was a real radio station. And next time he came out, he busted off the last part of the sign, just had a W with nothing after it, because somebody said, "Hey, by the way, maybe you should not be using a real radio station call letter set there for you." Willie Harley, sorry for the loss of your friend, Steve. Well, thank you. And there were a lot of very nice statements about him, obituaries and so on, official ones, and also just people who knew him posting like on Twitter and Facebook. And the outpouring of just kind thoughts were overwhelming. And it really does go to show what kind of life you've lived when you've touched that many people in such a positive way. There's not everybody who knew him would, nice guy, greatest guy. I mean, and I felt bad. It'd probably been about 6 months since I talked to him last. But he was always there. And when I had him as a professor or an instructor at Specs back in 1981, I already at that time thought that, boy, this guy's knowledge is amazing. That was a long time ago. Mindbend's baby. WRIF's Arthur Penhollow. He's not there anymore, but he's there for many, many years. Trademark voice, and he'd say, "Baby," and he had a way of saying it that became a catchphrase, single word catchphrase, which is hard to do these days. And the bumper sticker here they refer to that as the racetrack. It's an oval like a racetrack. And WRIF put out literally hundreds of variations on that with band names in there, disc jockeys' names in there, just the word "baby" in there. And so if you see that oval bumper sticker in southeastern Michigan, it has something to do with WRIF. Daniel Kester, anyone remember Dr. Demento? Of course. Dr. Demento was the guy who was a disc jockey in California. I should know his real name, but I forgot it. And he did a radio show where he played novelty records. And among other things, Weird Al Yankovic got his start from Dr. Demento. He sent in a tape, I believe it was, of Another One Rides the Bus. And but he brought a lot. He brought out a lot of music that nobody else would play because it's just a little too goofy. Dr. Demento. Rafe Garrett, have you ever had legal proceedings with a car dealer directly, not the manufacturer? Oh, many times. I sue the manufacturers under breach of warranty and lemon law theories. I sue dealerships. I used to, not as much anymore, but I used to sue them all the time for fraud cases, spot deliveries, things of that nature. It just depends on who does what. But lemon law speaks to the manufacturer. Alexi Saukala says, hello from a very not snowy and wet Vasa, Finland. I'm sure you recognize the shirt then. So thank you for checking in. I've got a disproportionate number of viewers in Finland because Finland is not a very populous country, but there are a lot of them who do in fact watch my show because they recognize that my last name is in fact Finnish in its origin. Sailing yacht Salty Lass, good evening from Belfast, Ireland. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, or what have you. Steam Man Norfolk. Good evening, Steve. Hi from mid Norfolk, UK. Thank you for checking in. Knife Collector, I wonder how many people have used the knowledge you share in a real court case. There have been several. I got to remember that subject you've taught us. Thank you. I appreciate that. I get emails periodically. I wouldn't say like every couple months maybe, where someone will actually send me a note and say, Steve, I went to small claims court, or I had a dispute with somebody, or I had a problem with a store, and I resolved it favorably by following your advice. And I've had quite a few of those over the years, and I do think it's really cool because a lot of stuff I talk about is not something an attorney could get involved with. It just wouldn't be worth it. So if you can solve it on your own, it's all the better. Walter White, hey Mr. Lehto, hey Mr. White, how are you? JJ CEO 40 says there's one less RV to deal with in Nashville. Crazy. Yeah, there was the incident in Nashville on Christmas morning, which was crazy. And what's bizarre about it is now they're wondering if there's a link to the fact that it happened in front of an AT&T building, and it may have had to do with somebody's fear of 5G, which, nowadays you have no idea what anything could be inspiring to somebody these days. So Fred Corrado Jr., good video on the taxable help we got this year. Thank you, Fred. And that's a topic. It's interesting because as I pointed out in the video, 1/3 of the people in America know this. 2/3 don't. So the problem is that 1/3 of the people who watch the video go, I already knew this. And I've already gotten some comments. People said, hey, I already knew this. This is a stupid video. It's like, okay. Not every video speaks to everyone. So, if I can reach the other 2/3 of America, I'm doing well. Scotty Beam, hello, Steve Lehto. I hope you're doing well. Yes, I'm doing well. Thank you for asking. I appreciate that. Daniel Kester, Mr. Lehto, thanks to you, I will never desire buying an RV. Well, I think I've stated my opinion pretty openly and clearly on that. I did have somebody tell me the other day, said, Steve, what you really need to say is don't buy a new RV. I said, well, what I really need to say is what follows that in the 30-minute video or whatever it is. But quite frankly, the idea really distilled is don't buy an RV unless you know what you're doing and understand what you're getting yourself into. The problem is it's too long for a title. So 1215 Tim, hey, Steve. Hey, 1215. Is your first name Tim or 1215? American-made jewelry from Dobie's Designs. Everyone knows a tinfoil hat will protect you from 5G. I don't know if it's just enough for your hat. You may have to actually put it over the entire roof of your house. So Joshua Sweet says, you forgot to say it was not tax advice. Actually, at the very end of the video, I said you should consult your own tax advisor. I did say that. Doesn't matter. I did say it. Bill McMahon, has anyone heard Grandma got run over by a reindeer on broadcast radio this year? Interesting. I haven't listened to broadcast radio in about 5 years, so I can't help. But I do recall that's one of those songs, the first time you hear it, that's actually pretty funny. And the more you hear it, it gets less and less funny. And pretty soon it crosses down into the negative where you're like, okay, how fast can I turn this radio off? So, Mindbend, have you ever owned an RV? No, I haven't. I've also never actually set my foot in a bear trap. I've never actually walked up and grabbed an electric fence with both hands. And I've never jumped out of a moving train. Okay. So just in case you're going to go there, but I have known people who've owned them. Oh, I've known people. I've had clients, and the stories I can tell you, trust me, it's go talk to a drug counselor and ask them if they've ever tried the drugs they counsel people over. And they're saying, no, of course not. Okay. But have you seen things that would convince you that it's something people should avoid? Yeah, of course. So, but I mean, I've been in more RVs than the average person. I've talked to more owners of RVs than the average person, and a very good friend of mine, and I don't know if I can talk about it just yet, but a very good friend of mine just bought a used RV, but he bought a top of the line used RV, and he's been walking me through the process as he's doing it. And he said somewhere down the road, we might do a video together because it'd be fun just to talk about that aspect of it, because he knows everything that I talk about with respect to whether you should buy one or not. And so he's trying to avoid all those pitfalls, and he's doing it by buying a used one and doing all of the steps in advance to protect himself. So somewhere down the road, I'll do a video on that. By the way, this is probably a good time to mention this. It's past 1 o'clock. I got my check from Zazzle finally, and I'm holding this up because I wrote the numbers down on here. But I finally sold over $100 worth of stuff on Zazzle. So if you want to, you can buy a Lehto's Law coffee mug or a shirt that has the Lehto's Law logo on it. And I put that up like 6 months ago. And I said, look, if I make any money on this, I'm going to give it to charity. I don't care. I'm not trying to monetize my channel in that way. I'm not going to be a mercenary and start selling all kinds of weird stuff like, hey, check it out. It's a Lehto's Law griddle or something. But I did raise $104.78. And what happens is as soon as you break $100, at the end of that month, 2 weeks go by, then they mail you a check. So they mailed me a check for $104.78. $104.78. Right now, I've got like $1.58 in the account. So with the check of $104.78, this is not a contest. I'm not giving this away to anybody in the audience. But I did say specifically that I'd like to give the money to a charity, preferably one that has something to do with animals, maybe. I like animals. It's got to be a nonprofit, and it's got to be legit. So if anybody in the audience knows of any good nonprofit charitable things having to do with animals, rescues, shelters, or anything like that, fire away in the comments here. We'll pick one and we'll just do it. Like I said, it's not a contest. I'm not giving this money to anybody in the audience. So if anybody else, Calix is your local humane society. Well, everyone's got one of those. Can we up the game a tiny little bit? Quentin James, hey, Steve Lehto from Louisville, Kentucky. Love the channel. Thank you. Somebody mentioned, High Pockets, food to an animal shelter. Okay. Wild Bill 57 got a shirt, and it's very, very good quality. Joshua Sweet says, Hope for Paws. Hope for Paws. Who is that? Or is that a single organization? Or is it something I could find on the internet? Mindbend. You could give the money to the Mindbend Feed the Fat Fund. Tiger Stripes. Don't give it to the sad puppy people on those commercials. Okay, Maui Meowie says, Friends for Felines in Ohio. Is that an actual thing? Friends for Felines? If there's such a thing called Friends for Felines, they're getting it. Hang on a second. Let me see here. Got to go to my phone here. Friends for Felines, Ohio. Looks like they're real. Friends of Felines Rescue Center in Defiance, Ohio. Defiance, Ohio. I'm sending them a check for $104.78 tomorrow. So there we go. Friends of Felines in Defiance, Ohio. And I'll tell you that one of the reasons that I decided to go with them, Friends of Felines, Ohio, is that Defiance, Ohio is an important town. For another story, Douglas Houghton was the surveyor who surveyed much of Michigan, and the north-south meridian in Michigan. The north end is at Sault Ste. Marie, and the south end runs through the bottom of the state of Michigan down to Defiance, Ohio. So I realized that when someone mentioned something in Defiance, Ohio, that had to be a sign. I know some people are going to argue that if it's simply cats, we're letting the dogs down. So as a reminder, let me know next time I get $100, which could take another 6 months. We'll give one to something that's specifically dogs. Okay. So we'll go with the Friends of Felines in Ohio. Doug Jones says, the Crazy Lady Cat Fund. Matthew shows from All Else Fails, you could buy a bunch of socks and take them to a homeless shelter. I could. Matthias F. Lou. In Talks and Google, I found your lecture about the Chrysler Turbine Cars program was very interesting. Thank you. But the sad part is I had set that up with a PowerPoint presentation, and they told me they were going to merge the two so you could hear me talk but watch the screen, and it didn't do that. So I put up a YouTube video about the Turbine Car program, one of the first videos I ever put up. You can check that out on my channel also. But thank you for watching that. And by the way, Matthias, I've not forgotten about you. Matthias sent me a postal reply coupon so I can send him something in Germany. And postal reply coupons were, of course, at the heart of the original Ponzi scheme run by Charles Ponzi. So somewhere down the road, I'll talk more about Ponzi schemes and postal reply coupons because it's kind of funny. So Doug Jones, where's Johnny Knoxville and the Canadian Robot Lady? Well, there's Johnny, present. Doug Jones, and the Canadian Robot Lady's around, I'm sure. Keith Gregory stopped by to say hi. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I have a lot of people who tell me, they say, Steve, I know that you do live streams on Sunday, don't have time to watch them, whatever. But I've also people say, Steve, I've watched them. I just never jump in because a lot of people are kind of put off by the scroll going by. But I know it looks kind of crazy and it's kind of fast paced and hectic. But if you can just say hi, I hope I see it and I'll say hi back and I appreciate that. But it's one of those things where it's just nice to know that people are here. I mean, I can see by the numbers, there's 352 people right now who are logged into the room. 352. That's a lot of people. And I'm guessing 10% of them are commenting. But that's fine. There's no reason that you can't sit there and watch and just hang out and have a good conversation just as part of the conversation. We've all done that before, hanging out before, where you're in the back of the room not talking, but you're there. Ted Davis, hello. Bob Bong, hey guys. D Wood, hi Steve, hi all. MJC, hi Steve. Gene Provost, oh, hi. Port Wolf Steve, it's Jeremy Young. Thank you. Tiger Stripes, this is a very good chat, good community. And by the way, that's true. And I'm not just saying this to butter you guys up. I have not had to block anybody for quite some time. There was a little while there where it got touch and go. Tabby's daddy, hello. Duncan Campbell checking in from Melbourne, Australia. For those of you who want to know how things are going down under. Good morning, Steve. Good morning, Duncan. How are you? Fred Corrado Jr., hi. Josh Woodland, listening while working, but hi all. ZKR99, when will Tesla start making RVs? That's an interesting question. I hadn't thought about that, because they've got the truck coming, right? A bigger question is, when will crate motors, literal electric crate motors, become more common? I know they're available, but I think there's going to come a time where people are going to start experimenting more and more, putting electric stuff into regular cars or RVs. And it might not be that Tesla actually makes the entire RV, because that's a whole different ballgame. But they could make the chassis and sell it to somebody else. But I'm not sure. Because the interesting thing about RVs is they do often spend a lot of time parked in one spot where they could charge, right? On the other hand, what happens if you got to make a long, long drive? You just plan a few stops along the way. Is that Biaka? Driving while listening. Just don't be commenting while driving. Doug Thompson. Hi, Steve. Steve the Steve. Joe 65. Hi, I hope you had a good Christmas. Yeah, I did. It was a mellow Christmas this year. Unfortunately, I think everyone had a lot of people had mellow Christmases. T. Laird hanging out. Appreciate that. Jonathan Anderson. Don't have time to stay, but wanted to say hi. See, I appreciate that. Like I said, just check in, say hello. Mike Kulak. Hi, Steve from Montreal, Canada. I apologize. Probably butchered your name. Glenn Simpkins. Howdy. Lemzia. Hello. Steve Lehto from California. Roxon. Don't be scared to chat. Zaphod Beeblebrox, our two-headed alien friend. Hi, Steve. At least the character is. Matt B, my comment. Hello from St. Louis. And hello, my friend. Hobie Jackson, hi from Northeast Texas. Ant Combust, good afternoon from an Arizona morning. Tabby's daddy, if I sit real still, nobody will see me. Yeah, there you go. Aaron B, hi from San Francisco. Hammond Egger, hello, I'm trying to watch the football game too. Which game you watching? Gene Provost, Gene, pronounced John. Oh, Jean Provost? John Provost? I apologize. You have to understand, I'm reading stuff. I haven't even got time to process half of it. So, DePaul 31, hi from Staten Island, New York, 38F and sunny here. Mindbend, say hi again to the world. Hey, Sam Dabish, hi from Berkeley. Now, the question is, are you from Berkeley, Michigan or Berkeley, California? I see from the spelling, I'm guessing Michigan, but you never know. William Burnett, hello from Mishawaka. Mishawaka. I love Mishawaka. You think I'm joking, but I'm not. I lived in Eau Claire, Michigan, right down here, just north of the Indiana-Michigan line from Mishawaka. If I wanted to go get anything beyond like what you buy from a Dollar General, I often had to go to Mishawaka. So I spent a lot of time in Mishawaka. It's a pleasant drive, too, just running back and forth between Eau Claire and Mishawaka. So I like that place. There's a really, really nice mall there. It's a university mall. I could be wrong. Joe 65, I got tested for COVID today. Got to wait for the results. How long do those results take? Are they getting faster with that? Curtis Martin, hi, Steve. Love your show. Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Diddy, do you offer retainers? Retainers. You mean, do I take retainers? Do I have people pay me retainers to wait around for them to ask me for help? Generally not. No, I know a lot of corporate type lawyers do that, or even criminal lawyers do that. A lot of criminal lawyers take money up front as retainer, but there's also people who just take retainers from people who just say, look, you can call me anytime and we'll, take it off what you paid. So Sherry Canary, hi, Steve, and all others on the chat. Gotta love a name that rhymes. Don Matzeder, upper 60s in Arkansas, 200-mile cruise yesterday in the new vet. Is it a new vet, like a C8 vet, or just a new to you vet? Interesting. Yeah, Dixie Champagne says, no, the question is, were you wearing a retainer? So most kids think when they hear the word retainer, the thing you put in your mouth. I never had one. I know people who did. Shirley Dutchy, happy Sunday, Mr. Lehto. Thank you. Appreciate that. Dodd and Michael love watching Vancouver, outside in Langley, British Columbia. That's one part of the world I've never been to. I need to get to the northwest of the U.S., contiguous, in the Washington, Oregon area. But I'd also love to visit Vancouver, British Columbia area too. So Peggy Morgan, where is Ford building the E-Mustang? I don't know. I'm so put off at the idea it's got 4 doors. I don't really care. Ian Halusiak, underglow legality in the U.S. Are you talking about the lights underneath the car? Generally speaking, you run into potential problems anytime you put lights on a car that are not put there by the manufacturer. So extra headlights, extra taillights. You saw maybe last week a guy wrapped his car in Christmas lights and he got ticketed for that. And lights around the license plates are often a no-no. But sometimes it's not that well defined, but you'll often get some police officer with no sense of humor who's going to pull up next to you and say, hey, that's an equipment ticket, my friend. We'll see what happens. Walter White, the show was awesome on the air at WLLW 101.7 The Wall. Thank you. Referring, of course, to the guest DJ slot I did back a little over a year ago now in July in Geneva, New York on Lake Seneca. Went in and did a 12 to 5 shift on a classic rock station just to see if I could be a DJ one more time. It was a lot of fun. So, Mr. Diddy, God bless. Have a good stream. Thank you. I appreciate that. Leandro Garcia, Steve Lehto, Udaman in all caps. I appreciate that too. Bob France is watching you at the Mustang plant south of Detroit. Well, is that where they're building the new E-Mustangs or just the old Mustangs? Aldi Moore says, having owned many Mustangs, Mach-E is a sad addition. That's, I don't have a problem with them putting out an electric car. I don't. That's my bigger problem is it's got 4 doors. And I'm not saying 4-door cars are of the devil like restrictor plates are. I'm saying that 4 doors belong on some cars, not on others. So if I told you I got a classic Chevelle and you go, great, and I go, it's got 4 doors, you go, huh? And a Mustang was a car that never, ever should have four doors. So there's a problem there. And it's one problem to say we're taking this car and making it electric, but to go electric and four doors, it's all at the same time. So I don't know. EJ says the Mustang is built in Flat Rock, Michigan, which I guess is the reference to south of Detroit. But the question is whether that's where they're going to build the E ones also. I don't know. JJ CEO 40 says McNamara had a four-door T-Bird made. And I also heard, I believe that they may have experimented with a prototype Mustang that somebody didn't like. Brian Fullerton, I thought Joe Jackson was the man. And that is a great album, by the way. Look Sharp. One of those classic albums that helped define that era. And Joe Jackson went on to do some kind of crazy music. He had some very unusual musical sensibilities. He was a brilliant keyboard player, but his album Look Sharp had some great songs on it. It got a ton of airplay. And I mean, I remember hearing Is She Really Going Out With Him on WRIF, so great album. So there you go. That was a tangent for you. How's that? Dixie Champagne, love Joe Jackson. Hannes Oman, I could be mispronouncing that. Hannes arrived late, but one viewer from Vasa, Finland here to watch someone who's almost from our country. Thank you. And again, as noted, I'm wearing the Finland shirt today in honor of the fact that right now Finland is rocking it in the IIHF World Junior Championships. In fact, they're playing a little bit later today. In about an hour, my time, I'll be watching them play. So, Michael Krause, I have the I'm the Man on 7-inch. It's all singles in a box. Very, very cool. Tiger Stripes, I like Joe Jackson's Look Sharp well enough, but had too many parties spoiled by people putting that on and letting it play endlessly. Oh, yeah, there was always a few albums like that that's got beaten to death. And that probably could be one of them. It didn't get as much airplay other than one or two songs. So Lems just says, hey, Is She Really Going Out With Him was my go-to song for karaoke. Burke, Yoop, or Swami. There you go. Mr. Phil, 1969, Joe Jackson's live triple album was awesome. I've not heard that. I'll have to take a look. I can tell you that a very good friend of mine went and saw Joe Jackson play in Ann Arbor at a smaller place, maybe in Power Center. And it was pretty much a low-key affair. I believe it was just him and a piano. I don't think he even had a band. And halfway through one song, he stopped because somebody in the audience was talking. And he chewed the person out. And he's like, are we good? Okay, fine. And he went back and he started the song over. Mindbend, you going to cut the show short for the game? No. I'm going to. I got the DVR set to record it, so I'll watch it later. Just don't tell me how it ended. Tiger Stripe says that the same was true for Blondie's Parallel Lines. I assume you mean it was getting overplayed. So, G Voked, is it Boxing Day? Oh, what is Boxing Day? Boxing Day is a British thing or English thing. I'm not sure, British or English. It's the day after Christmas, which is a big deal for them. Something we don't really do over here. I suspect they revere it the way we revere, I guess, Christmas Eve. Although they probably do that too. So, Calix says Boxing Day was a wash, lockdown here, so couldn't follow the usual traditions. So. RW Monday says, Steve, the Ford Probe was to be the Mustang replacement. I'm just laughing because Ford Probe is one of the most ill thought out names of all time. Nobody likes to be probed And it's something aliens do to you that no one will believe you about later. Why would you name a car after that? I'm sorry. So Ford Probe and the Ford Contour, another bad car. It's not that the Contour is a bad name, it was just a bad car. So, Daniel Kester reminds us that Captain and Tennille had a song played to death, maybe worse than to death. I'm assuming you're referring to "Love Will Keep Us Together," and that was a bad song. I mean, it was just overplayed. It was syrupy. It was. I've got a Sirius satellite XM thing on my Ford Explorer, and so when I'm driving around, I just scan through the dials, the different channels, and one of the issues is that they've got some channels that are very, very well thought out, and other ones are simply like categories. So, for instance, it'll actually say like the 60s. And so they'll actually play any song from 1960 through 1969, and it doesn't matter what, and it can be just a mishmash of stuff. And I was flipping through channels like that, and I hit one last week, and I heard "Love Will Keep Us Together." And I'm like, oh, how quickly can I change that channel? Lemsey points out it's now time for some sports scores. 10-7, 8-2, and in a stunner, 1-0. Woo! Pulled that one out. Jared Draper, I got a 1990 Ford Probe. I knew somebody who had a Ford Contour, still ran great. Went into a dealership to upgrade and get a new car. It wasn't a Ford dealership. And the dealer actually said, we don't want that car. And I was there, by the way. And my friend said, well, I'm going to trade it in. You'll give me something. The guy goes, no, we'll give you nothing for it. And I go, hang on a second. I'm a lawyer. I deal with car dealerships all the time. I go, that car has to have some value. And he pulled out a blue book and he goes, show me. And I opened it up. It goes like retail value on the car was like $1,000. He goes, those things have got no resale value. He goes, if I could sell it for $1,000, he goes, I wouldn't because it's not worth my time. It takes up space on my lot. I don't sell cars that cheap. And he goes, and the fact is nobody wants those cars. And so I actually had a friend who ran a used car lot in a sketchier part of town. And she said I could sell the car because if it runs, I can sell it for a little bit more than that. But the point is that the car dealership, the guy actually said, he goes, I don't want the car. He goes, I wouldn't give you $1 for it. And he was being serious. He goes, no, I nothing, zero. Get it off my lot. Ford Contour. Mark Doherty says Muskrat Love was overplayed. Well, it was overplayed simply because it never should have gotten played in the first place. But Muskrat Love was not as big of a hit as Love Will Keep Us Together. I mean, Love Will Keep Us Together was like a number one and glued to the roof for a while. Muskrat Love was the weak follow-up. And it's a crime against sound. Dan DeClerc, the Mercury mistake, the mystique. Song Yardbird has actual physical reactions to hearing Muskrat Love. Well, that's the whole point, is that if your song causes that kind of reaction. Robert Lee, Ford spent $1 billion in the Contour, supposed to be a world car. Yeah, there have been some situations like that where somebody goes, from the ground up, we're going to engineer something, and it's going to be so good that we can import them to Europe or export them to Europe or ship them down here or sell them over there. And the weird thing about it was that it was just a really boring, inexpensive car that wasn't built that well. And I mean, it wasn't a disaster. It's just that nobody wanted them. And I always thought, hey, look, a car that runs has got to have value, right? And like I said, the Blue Book value was just bad. So Geek Moto 13, I'm glad this crappy year is almost over. It is almost over. And unfortunately, some of the problems of 2020 are going to tail off into 2021. So it just depends on how quickly we can get back to normal. We'll see. So Situation Money says, I have a 1996 Contour with a 5-speed manual. I'm the talk of the town. The Contour I'm referring to had an automatic in it, and it was dark green. So, Titan O'Connell, what's your favorite Rush album? I apologize. I am not a big Rush fan, and I just never have been. A lot of stations in Detroit play Rush because Canada's right across the river. I never got into them. I have nothing against them, but I just was never a big fan. I'm not normally a big fan of progressive rock, if that's what you consider them. So it depends. But I mean, I know people who think like Yes, well, they're progressive rock too. I like a few songs by Yes also, but not a huge Rush fan. But like I respect them. I know music wise, they are very, very talented people. So 90 knots. Don't apologize for not being a Rush fan. I try to be careful these days because you can mention anybody and discover that like you happen to have the president of their fan club in your audience. Kevin in New York, did you get the video I sent you about the Detroit street racer car guy? Yes, I did. I didn't watch it yet. I got sent it by a bunch of different people. I'm a little concerned though, because it's a video that purportedly is of the guy who had the hot car on Woodward Avenue back in the day. And there are like 25,000 people all claim that they're the ones who had the hot car on Woodward Avenue back in the day. And almost all of them are lying or exaggerating. But I'm not saying him. We'll see. Mark Doherty, my wife's mad at you now. She can't get Love Will Keep Us Together out of her head. Love. Oh, my God. It's stuck in my head now, too. Richard R., what do you think the new normal will be in 2021? If I had to guess, there will come a time, early summer, midsummer, I don't know when, where nothing will be locked down, restaurants will be open again, and you can go out without wearing a mask. We will see that next year. But there's going to, unfortunately, be a lot of hard feelings about what we went through, and a lot of, and this is different, by the way, and a lot of fallout from things that started in the pandemic but haven't resolved yet. So all of the landlord-tenant issues, all of the people right now who can't be evicted but can't pay their rent, and all the landlords who'd like to evict people or get paid rent, what's going to happen to them? And all of the banks that want to foreclose on all the landlords who can't collect their rent from all the people they can't evict. So there's going to be a whole bunch of that kind of stuff that's going to just roll into the next year. And there have been occasions where laws changed and so on, where there was a rush to get things filed. When Michigan redid its no-fault law one time in the early 1990s, they changed a law, and it says starting January 1st, the law changes from this to this. And there was a rush. And I remember being down at Wayne County Circuit Court clerk office, seeing people walk in with piles of lawsuits. And they were trying to file them all within that period. So when the courts opened back up for business at the beginning of 2021, you're going to see a whole pile of lawsuits being filed by the landlords, by the tenants, by the banks, and then all kinds of other fields. And I've said before, I feel very, very sorry for the businesses. And I do what I can to support the small businesses. But there are some that just haven't been able to make it. And there's some that won't come back. That's really sad. I saw an article, New York Post or New York Times, actually the New York Times, where they went out and did a story on some of the iconic restaurants that are closed and they think are closed for good, that COVID did them in, they won't be back. And that's a crying shame. So Brian Fullerton points out, as we look back on this year, we'll remember it as the year we lost Eddie Van Halen. That's true. Ronald Bear, I used to own a 1968 Chevy Chevelle Concourse. Wondering if you ever heard of them. I heard they were made in Canada. They're only made 700. Never heard of it. I know that Chevy had the weird thing where they like giving cars two names. So it'd be the Chevy Chevelle Malibu or the Corvette Stingray or whatever. I've never heard of a Chevelle Concourse. Doesn't surprise me. A lot of times there were these, oddball things. They made a small run of something. So there are only two genders. What is your biggest lawsuit in pounds sterling? Well, you could have said, what's your heaviest lawsuit in pounds? Avoir du poids. You mean what's the lawsuit I felt over the most amount of money, or the most money I've gotten for a client? Or most of my lawsuits only involve automobiles or RVs. And so the most expensive lawsuit I've ever filed would have been in the hundreds of thousands of dollars because I've gotten RVs bought back that were six figures. I've also filed a class action lawsuit on behalf of a few hundred people that was for a few $1,000s a piece, which if all added together may have been up into the close to $1 million range, maybe a little more. But that's a class action. So, yeah, I don't know the exact dollar figure on that though. The bulk of my cases are generally speaking just, whatever the value of a car is. So Burke Uper, one great thing about living in the UP was that most everything is a small business. Yeah, that's good, that's bad, because unfortunately some small businesses have got absolutely no cushion. Whereas if it's owned by corporate parents, they might be able to come back later. But I can also tell you that, if you go into a small town like Copper Harbor, Michigan, so the Lower Peninsula is here, the Upper Peninsula is here, the Keweenaw Peninsula is here, and at the very top is Copper Harbor, one of my favorite places on earth. And there are some big businesses, and by big businesses, I merely mean they've been there a long time, that have been there for a long time, but there's a few that have been owned by the same people for many, many years. And there are a few that have changed hands a few times. And so every now and then you watch that and you say, this place has got new owners. Are they going to make it or not? We'll see. So, Calic, ever been to Escanaba in the UP? Absolutely. Escanaba is, you cross the Mackinac Bridge, hang a left, shoot across US 2, about hour and a half, 2 hours. In fact, I drove through Escanaba last summer, at least once, maybe a couple times. Haven't spent a lot of time in Escanaba, although I did a radio show there when my Turban Car book came out because I spoke at the library in Escanaba. And as you can imagine, I just like saying Escanaba. It's like Mishawaka. You can imagine taking a trip from Mishawaka to Escanaba. Josh Joslin, do attorneys cash in multiple times on class actions? It's not that they cash in multiple times, it's that they can get paid a larger amount of money because they're getting such a big result. And it's not just the result. Class actions do involve more work. So if I brought an action on your behalf against a big company, I'd put in so much work. If I brought a class action on behalf of your case and everyone's situated like you, similarly situated, I'll do more work. But I'll also get substantially more in relief if we win. So you can imagine why, but class action attorneys make more money, but it is a lot more work. And so I've done a few. It's been a while, but I used to do them more often. Blaze and Cyrus points out that Kalamazoo is a fun town. You could go from Mishawaka to Kalamazoo to Escanaba. And at that point, I suspect you should probably head on up to Baraga just to round it out. Oh, and then cut over to Ontonagon. Burke Uper says Copper Harbor is a nice place to stop for a bite before going out on the Mandan Loop to camp for a bit. Dude, you have to understand something. I know the Mandan Trail and the Burma Trail. Literally, I'm going to give you a factual statement. Okay, if you were to blindfold me and drop me onto the Mandan Trail in any spot with my mountain bike and said, Steve, get back to Copper Harbor, you got 15 minutes. Maybe half an hour. I could do it. I know that trail that well. And what he's talking about is the tip of the Keweenaw Peninsula. Copper Harbor is at the top north side of that peninsula tip. And there's a logging road that goes around the tip of the peninsula and it cuts back up. And there's all kinds of logging roads that crisscross back there. But the main one is the Mandan Loop. And there used to be a town called Mandan, which is about 5-10 miles outside of Copper Harbor. Not much there anymore, just a couple houses, abandoned houses. But it's a really, really fun place because you can go mountain biking on logging roads for hours and not see anybody if you want to. You can also just take your bike up the top of Brockway Mountain Drive and just zoom down the side of Brockway Mountain. That's another thing you can do up there too, the mountain bike. Depends on what you want to do. Daniel Kester, did Oshkosh have their air show this year? I don't believe they did. I believe it's one of the many things that got canceled. Richard R., my favorite place is due west of Copper Harbor. What are we referring to? There's Copper Harbor. If you go west, if you follow the coastline, you'd be going on land. If you went due west, I think pretty quickly you wind up out in Lake Superior. But due west down the coastline would be like, say, Eagle Harbor and Eagle River, which are very, very cool places as well. I love that whole area up there. I literally go up there and just drive around. Schlatter Lake, is that the lake out towards the tip of the peninsula? I believe it is. I've ridden my bicycle by it to where I could see it. Never actually got out and looked at it, though. I know what it is because I've ridden my bike, for instance, out to the rocket launching pad that is out there. Burke Uper, when I was living in Hancock, we used to spend a lot of time camping at Hoare Lake. That one doesn't ring a bell, but there's a lot of tiny little lakes up there that are not terribly trafficked. David Beeler, Oshkosh was indeed canceled. And I thought I heard that, but I wasn't 1,000% on that, but I was close. So I'm pretty sure it was. Josh Woodland used to have a family camp in Lance. My grandfather had built a cottage, called it the camp. It's a very Finnish Upper Peninsula thing. You call it your camp. But he had a cottage he built with his own hands back in the 1940s. And my father spent his childhood summers there on Lake Superior, Keweenaw Bay, halfway between, say, Lance and Chassel. And beautiful, beautiful area. Now, of course, if the family camp is in Lance or near Lance, Lance is actually around the bottom a little more, probably on the other side of the bay, maybe up towards Pequaming. Pequaming's a neat little town also. So V8 Behringer, greetings from Portugal. I fear the world is heading for an economic crisis, even worse than 2008. What is your opinion? I am a little more optimistic. And the reason is that we've gotten this far. And don't get me wrong, America still has 20 million people on unemployment. But I think that as the COVID goes away, which I think it's going to, I think the economy is going to come roaring back. So obviously it'll have dented our lifestyles quite a bit, but I think we're going to do okay. At least I think we'll do better than we did in 2008. But that's just my opinion. I'm not an economist. JJ, CEO 40, have you ever been chased by a moose? I wish. I've never seen a moose in the wild. I've never seen a moose in the wild. And I'd like to someday, but I have not seen one yet. Dave, Michigan Tech, Mandan Loop passes by the Keweenaw Rocket. Well, yes, the Mandan Loop curls around, and then there's a road that goes out to the point, Keweenaw Point, and you've got to find that. It depends on the year. Sometimes it's marked well, sometimes it's not. The road out the point is rough. I've taken my Ford Explorer out there. I took a Jeep Wrangler out there. My Army truck, I didn't take it out there, but it very easily could have made it out there. But then out towards the very end, the road splits, and the rocket pad is on one split, and the Keweenaw Point is at the other split. So David Beeler, the Paris Air Show has been canceled for 2021. Is that in the spring, though? I don't know. Mark Heil checking in late from Huntington Beach. Thank you for checking in, my friend. Mark Heil's hooked me up with some great T-shirts out there. Also, the K-Rock bumper sticker. And Huntington Beach, of course, is a beautiful, beautiful place. I like Manhattan Beach, Huntington Beach. I like that whole area down there. Doug Jones, have you watched the show Lost Speedways? No, I have not. I'm familiar with the concept, though. I know that some of the speedways are still out there and some of them are, Daniel, are you sufficiently hydrated? Well, I will be if necessary. I've got the Gatorade right here. When you see me reach off screen and my arm is doing this, it's because I'm shaking the Gatorade for some unknown reason. Burke Uper says, yeah, Schlatter Lake is right at the tip. Lots of people headed over there. Yeah, it's kind of like out in the woods, I mean, it's not very well developed. US 41 is the road that goes up the Canoe Peninsula that theoretically you can take all the way south to Florida. Okay. And as you're going through Copper Harbor, there's a sign that actually says Miami 1990. And it's not the year, it's the distance. But if you take the other direction, it goes up and it hits a turnaround. And that's a paved turnaround. And there's a sign that tells you where you are. And off the back of the turnaround is a dirt road. And it's down that dirt road you go that puts you on the Mandan Trail. It can take you up to Canoe Point, Schlatter Lake, or around to like the Montreal Falls, or that side of the peninsula and so on. If you have no idea what we're talking about here, if you ever get the chance to drive through Michigan, go to the Canoe Peninsula, the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, in the summertime in particular. People will tell you it's a lot like driving the ocean coastline near Maine, for instance. Rocky outcrops, a lot of cool places to pull over and look. The lake is magnificent, Lake Superior. So David Beeler, once landing a small plane in Greenville, Maine, had a moose on the runway, did a go-around. Good move. If you hit that moose, the moose wouldn't enjoy it, but neither would the plane. Moose are big. Moose are really, really big. Yeah, Johnny Knoxville points out there's no slower route to the south than US 41. Yeah, US 41 was one of the original highways, and later on other highways became more efficient. But US 41 is still there, and technically you can take it from the tip of the Canoe Peninsula all the way down to Florida. So, Situation Money, will you make more videos about the Dodge Viper? Absolutely. I just won't do it till the spring. In case you're curious, I put my Viper away a couple weeks ago, and as long as there's not snow on the ground. Well, now there's snow on the ground. So I got a battery tender, trickle charger, and hooked that up yesterday. So it's tucked in a heated garage, trickle charger, just waiting for the spring. So yeah, when I get it out, I will shoot some more videos and take it places and try to find things to do with it, to give you an excuse to make videos. So, Song Yardbirds seen musk ox in Barrow, Alaska. I've watched the gold shows from up there. The people who do the dredging out in the ocean. And occasionally in their B-roll shots, they'll show the muskox wandering around, and they're really cool looking animals. I don't know if you want to go up and like talk to them. I don't know if they have the same personalities like say a buffalo, meaning as long as you stay away from them, you're probably okay, but still don't turn your back on them. But they look cool. So Tom was hiking on a trail with friends and looked back because I heard some noise. There was a moose on the trail right where we had just walked. She's 20 feet behind us. There are places you can encounter moose. There are moose on Isle Royal out in the middle of Lake Superior. It's just at the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, the mainland part. There's a handful of moose scattered over thousands of square miles. So the odds of seeing one are pretty slim. G. Vogt points out that odd-numbered roads go north and south. Even numbers go east and west. And that's generally speaking from the point to point. Obviously, in the between, they might do weird stuff. For instance, I-94, which is an even-numbered road, goes across the bottom of Michigan, but at one point it curves up and goes like this. And it confuses a lot of people because they're pulling onto it. They're heading west. And it says, do you want to go east or west? I'm like, well, I already am. I am going west. To go north or south. So I'm talking about, re-signing some of those. Hang on a second. Marty Blackford says, I drove a 73 Pinto on the Mandan Trail. Okay, that's quite possible. The Mandan Trail itself is drivable. It's a question of whether you got off the trail on the road to the Keweenaw Point, because that one would be sketchier. But to your credit, a 73 Pinto, assuming it's not on fire, is a fairly light vehicle that can be handled pretty easily. So if you got it stuck and had a couple people with you, it's very easy to get it unstuck. So I can tell you that when I was out driving around on the Mandan Trail, we saw a car out in the woods, and somebody just abandoned it was like a Buick station wagon, and the VIN tag was still on the firewall. And I was so tempted to run the VIN, find the owner, and send him a letter and say, hey, we've located your car. There's accumulated storage fees, just for the fun of it. But I never did. So Quentin Wilson says they call them musk for a reason. Do they have an odor about them? Jeffrey Long, hey Steve, we got a foot of snow the other day, melting up a lot now with a sunny day here in Northeast Ohio, greater Cleveland area. How's it looking your way? I have about an inch of snow on the ground, just 1 inch, and not much. And I heard of snow that went to the north of me, and I heard of snow that went to the south of me. So I think that just the lower tier of Michigan, for the most part, did not get much snow on it. So Burke Uper, next time you're up in the area, ride your bike out to Fish Cove. It's an amazingly beautiful place with unusual geography as well. I'm not sure what that is. I've been to most of the places around out on the point. I know there's the trail to the falls, Montreal Falls, and then also I've been to Bear Bluff, which is one of the cooler things out in that area as well. So, David Beeler, does the UP have any wolves? Yes. There's wolves in the Upper Peninsula, and there's a big debate and controversy about it because they've been protected for a while, but they've delisted them, and then there's a question about how much problems they really cause. But yeah, there are wolves in the Upper Peninsula. John Myers, my nickname in middle school was Moose. Doug Jones hit a deer on my snowmobile. It jumped out of the bushes. Wow. And that's even scarier. I had an incident where I was driving with two of my brothers in the Upper Peninsula coming out of Lance, and we had just stopped for lunch. And I'm embarrassed to admit that we had food out and we're driving. And coming around, there's a curve, and then you're heading east for a while. And as we're cruising along, I'm at the wheel. We're talking, have a good old time. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw a deer with a rack of antlers, unlike anything I'd ever seen in the wild before, jump out of the ditch directly in front of the Explorer. And without hesitating, I went right around him like this. And it happened so fast. My brothers are like, my brother's like, that was pretty good driving. And I'm like, thank you. But it was one of those things where a split second later, he may have hit the back of my truck, or he may have just missed us. But a split second earlier, it would have been just a wrecked Explorer and a wrecked deer. I mean, a buck. But the rack of antlers on this thing was stupendous. And I'm not a hunter. And I was like, wow, did you see the antlers on that thing? So Jerry C. checking in from Muncie, Indiana. Hope you and your family had a nice Christmas. Thank you very much, my friend. And so do I hope the same for you, too. Dave, Michigan Tech, points out the moose wolf population study at Isle Royale is 40 years old. Yeah, we've talked about that before, believe it or not, briefly, that there's a professor from Michigan Tech who's been studying this for decades, how the moose and wolf populations interact. and they recently ran into trouble because the wolf population crashed. And the question then is, do they bring out more wolf? Do they not bring out more wolf? I think they brought some out. I think one of them walked home. And so there's issues, but it's a fascinating ecosystem, especially because it's a big, long island. And they've kept it as remote as they have. It's a national park. So Lee Harvey says a Jack Russell Terrier will chase off a pesky moose. A lot of dogs will go after larger things, and you never know, is it because they're ignorant or because they're smart enough to realize that if I do this, that moose will probably just run away? It would be comical to find a moose that decided to put up a fight and see what would happen between a moose and a Jack Russell Terrier, because obviously it's like battle bots. You have two totally mismatched things, right? Who knows what would happen? Brian Fortune points out that moose and squirrel must die, according to Boris and Natasha. Tina Burgess says, I live about 5 miles west of 41 in Florida. I could be at the Ambassador Bridge using 3 roads. The Ambassador Bridge is the bridge that connects Detroit to Windsor across the Detroit River. That's funny. Stuart Tamanaha says, Kili Kalakamaka. The same to you, my friend. Quentin Wilson says the musk ox stink to high heaven. Well, it's a defense mechanism. That's how they keep people away. Yeah, Burke Uper says they brought more wolves up to Isle Royale after it was down to a father-daughter pair, and genetic issues led to the health decline. And I do know at one point in time, at least one of the wolves went back. Like they brought him out or her out and just walked across the ice bridge and went back. That's the problem with these wild animals. They don't tend to just, do what you tell them to. Lee Harvey has seen several Nebraska deer clear the rooftops of cars running 75 miles per hour on I-80. Yeah, that's always the problem. I've had people ask me about, high speeds and Vipers. And the problem is if you're doing 80 miles an hour on the freeway and you pass a deer that's doing 0, in reality, the closing speed would still be 80 miles an hour. So if you run into a deer in a car and you're doing 80 miles an hour, even if the deer is not moving, it's still going to be an ugly collision. Ugly collision. So the question is, when people put those deer whistles on their cars, do those do anything? You can't hear them. You have to trust them, right? But I know people who swear by them and put the deer whistles. I don't know. John Michael McSee, Steve checking in from the Commonwealth. Was Santa good to you? Santa was okay. I can't expect too much from the guy. But thanks for checking in. John Michael and I often have conversations during the week, but I always tell him he's got to check in from time to time on the Sunday live stream. Yeah, Tabby's daddy points out that animals don't listen. Some are worse than others. Try talking to a cat. Brian Fortson says there's a 10-foot high fence at work. Deer jump it all the time. In my old neighborhood, I would occasionally see a white deer. I don't think it was an albino. I think it was just a white deer. And I had other people tell me they saw it too. And one day I was driving on the road south of my house, about a mile, and I saw the deer again. And the weird part is that there's somebody who lived there who had this big wrought iron fence that I think was 8 or 9 feet tall. And I felt bad because I'm like, oh, the deer is caught between the road and all of a sudden just whoop, jumped over and disappeared. I mean, it's amazing what they can do if they want to. So he's got to make sure they stay out of the road if you can. Katie Can, I have a set of deer whistles in the package in my glove box. They work just fine because I've never hit a deer yet. There you go. Oh. Rational Bushcraft says deer whistles don't work because deer don't hear in that range like dogs do. But I've heard people try to explain that it's not the same range, but it's a different range, and there are different animals. I don't know. I don't know. All I know is they sell them. They still sell them. Stop at any rest stop along I-75, any truck stop, and they've got them there. Mark Sparks, why doesn't Santa get busted for breaking and entering? Presumably, people consent to him entering because he's bringing gifts. Now, if Santa would occasionally come in and take stuff, then I suspect you'd see some criminal charges being brought. Bigger question is what happens when he disturbs somebody who forgets it's Christmas, and things could happen. So Dan DeClerc says moose can jump a 6-foot fence all day long. Burl Osborne, white deer can't jump. That'd be a good movie. DePaul 31 says, Steve, I sent you a package by priority mail on December 11th. Tracking says it's still on the way. Doesn't surprise me. I mentioned before I mailed myself 2 letters first class. Still haven't gotten the second one. Or still haven't gotten the first one. In other words, I mailed one, I mailed the second one. I got the second one a couple weeks later. The first one, months ago, haven't gotten it. No idea where it went. First class mail, gone. John Michael C., what time is the New Year's show? I haven't said yet today, but I haven't finished it yet. It's probably going to go up at 11:30 on New Year's, and it'll be a premiere. So if you subscribe, and if you don't subscribe, you really ought to. Why don't you? If you subscribe to my channel and you're on YouTube or have your notifications on, you're going to get a thing that says Lehto's Law, or Steve Lehto has a video going live at 11:30 tonight on New Year's Eve. So what's going to happen is I will pre-record the program and time it so that it goes up and will end at midnight. And it will have a dialogue box on the right because it's a premiere. We can chit-chat during it, and I'm going to count down the top 10 videos of the year, the 10 videos that did the best on my channel this year. Top 10 countdown. Couple other things I'll throw in there, some fun. Canadian Robot Lady's already done the countdown for me regarding the actual introductions of each video. I will record the video, put it all together, and it will be an elaborate production. John Michael McSee, it's not live. Well, the program's not live. The program's not live, but there will be a premiere and a chat thing on the side. So I will be here chatting with you, but I'm not sure what I could do on a live stream other than go, hey guys, it's almost midnight. Okay, 3, 2, 1, boom. I mean, that's what Ryan Seacrest is for. Timothy Marceau says only squares subscribe. Well, then there's 149,700 squares out there, and I love them dearly. So you really ought to reconsider that. Sometimes there are some things that you do want to join. Richard Burke says midnight Eastern Standard Time. Yes, unfortunately, I got to pick one. Thank you. So I'm going to go midnight Eastern. Johnny Knoxville, I could do the $100 bill drop. Dude, that's good. I've already got the name too. This thing writes itself, so trust me. 90 knots, best laugh ever. Thank you. I appreciate that. Johnny Knoxville. Many people don't know that Ryan Seacrest was a disc jockey. He still is a disc jockey, but he came up through radio. And he started out as a disc jockey, I believe from Atlanta. And then he went to California and he got the gig hosting American Idol. And then he spun that into media conglomerate, everything from, keeping up with the Kardashians to him now doing the countdowns on New Year's Eve. But it's unbelievable how much ground that guy's covered. But he started out as a disc jockey. So Keith Green says, this is the first time my phone notified me of the live stream starting up. First time ever. Well, thank you. And, I've had people tell me that they get notices, they don't get notices, they don't know what causes the notices, or they don't what doesn't cause them. So you never know. Ram 50 V8, a customer of mine that I had to meet with, his wife just brought me a massive homemade cherry cheesecake and a massive loaf of monkey bread. I don't know what that is, but I know what cheesecake is. Sounds good. Fred Stewart, I'm a subscriber and a well-rounded square. Oh, boy. David, Michigan Tech, squares are the new jocks. 149,000 ain't small for followers. Oh, boy. Canadian Robot Lady doesn't need to get notices because I'll remind her what time it is. Yeah, and I'll send her the text if people remind me. Oh, wait, I'll send her a text quick. We'll see if she's around. Oh, boy. Yeah, Timothy Marceau. So make sure you hit the subscribe button because you might get notified. Like I said, I don't know. I've had people tell me that they subscribed and later went in and they were unsubscribed, and they had to subscribe again. I don't know. I don't question some of these things. They're what I like to say is beyond my pay grade. Johnny Knoxville at text to Canada is about $5. Good news is only $5 Canadian. I had to say it. Oh, boy. Well, Bill 57, who is this Ryan Seacrest you speak of? I'm from Florida. Oh, come on. He's all over the television. Now, primarily he's known as being this inoffensive host of American Idol who's just, big smile and perfect hair and just, he's a host, but he has a regular radio show in Los Angeles that's syndicated nationwide. And if you ever hear it syndicated, it's horrible because he loves talking about Los Angeles stuff and stuff happening with the Kardashians because he's the executive producer of their show. And so he'll talk about so in the Soch, I was hearing him. It's like the Soch. You think people in other parts of the country refer to things as being the Soch? But unfortunately, he's doing the middays at a radio station I worked at years ago, and I've been driving by and I flipped the turn. And I'm like, oh, that's bad. Oh yeah, and he also does American Top 40 on iHeartRadio. John Michael points out, and that's the kind of stuff he does, because he's that well known, and he is good at what he does, but it's just basic hosting skills. He's not the world's greatest disc jockey. He's probably not even the top 10. Pay wise, he is. He makes a ton of money, but no one would ever say, "Oh, by the way, he's a great radio disc jockey." So, JJ CEO 40, will you be the next co-host of Live with Kelly Ripa? I never understood those morning shows. Hotby, what's that one's name? Hoda, Coatby. They're drinking at 10 o'clock in the morning. What? Never got that. Yeah, DePaul 31 says he took over from Dick Clark for the New York Yankees ball drop. Yeah, and there was a time where they co-hosted together. I know that, and they were lining him up for that. Mark Sparks says I subscribed when you had a beard a long time back. I often forget that with 150,000 subscribers, still a majority of you were not around when I, just a year or two ago, had the full beard, rocking the full beard. Hang on a second. Let me see if I can find a picture of it. I thought I had it. Hang on. I've got one here somewhere. Not there. I always forget where I put these things on my phone. Sorry about that. Hang on. And yeah, there we go. There's me rocking the beard. Can you see that, or is that out of? Yeah. Do I want to blur the background? No. Hang on. If I say yes, will that make it go away? No. Oh, well. How's that? There you go. But had the really short hair there too, so. Glenn Simpkins got to run winter tree trimming to do. Oh, you're not talking about trimming a Christmas tree. You're talking about actually trimming actual trees. Kevin in New York, Steve Lehto, Canoe Trip Beard. Sounds like an indie band. There you go. Colorado B guy. Hey, Steve, got a Grumman trip planned for next summer. Yes, I have one in particular. I'm going to finish the trip that I started in Sanford in 2019. I made it down to the bend in the river near Saginaw. I had to stop, ran out of time. And then this year, 2020 hit number one, and number two, the dam at Sanford collapsed and wiped that whole area out. So this year, 2021, this upcoming year, I'm going to launch from the same park I ended at last time and take it all the way down to the mouth of the river at Bay City, Saginaw Bay. So I'll do that hopefully in June or July and shoot some video. Fred Corrado Jr., how long have you hosted this YouTube channel? I've had the channel now for 7 years, but I did not start posting videos that regularly until about 3 years ago. For a long time, I put up one video a week and had like 150 subscribers. Sarah Callahan, about how many subscribers did your channel increase during COVID? About 50,000. I hit the 100,000 mark. I got the plaque more recently, but I actually hit 100,000 a little bit over a year ago. So probably picked up about 40,000. About 40,000. So Colorado B guy. I'm from Bridgeport and grew up around the Cass River, so I'm fascinated by the trip. Well, thank you. I will follow up on that. In particular, it's a trip that Douglas Houghton did back in 1837. He took a canoe up that river and back. So I'm simply going from one spot down. And so he was looking for a salt spring. There's a river up there called the Salt River that empties into the Tittabawassee River near Sanford. And they eventually sunk salt wells there. And so I passed by that on the first leg of the trip. I'll do the second leg this summer. And I will then shoot video. I can put 2 cameras on the boat. I'll crunch it down and I'll narrate it and put that up shortly afterwards. So. Richard R., is your canoe a square back? Yes. I've got a flat-sterned 17-foot aluminum Grumman canoe. And on the back of it, I've got a 5-horsepower Honda boat motor. So I've got outriggers on it. And I do that because the boat motor makes it very, very top-heavy. And it's already sketchy to begin with because with the motor and me in the back, it's sitting in the water like this. So I put a person in the front, it goes a little bit like this. But as soon as I accelerate, it starts digging in. So I'm this close to swamping it at all times. So I've got outriggers on it. So the problem I have is without the outriggers, it gets really tippy. And I don't like the idea about someone in the front of the canoe and me in the back and just something going wrong and tipping it. And untipping a canoe with a motor attached to it is also very difficult. So I got the outriggers on it, and that allows you to run it out on lakes. I've had it on Lake Superior. I've had it on Lake Huron. I've shot videos of all of this. So if you go through my channel, I've actually got I think you go into my channel and search for Lehto and Canoe, you'll find some of the videos. Dan DeClerc says, does it fly? It's Grumman. Well, the funny thing is that Grumman, it's the same company. Grumman is a well-known aircraft company. And what happened was a guy who worked for Grumman went canoeing one weekend and was disgusted at how heavy the canoe was. And he's like, why on earth are canoes so heavy? They should make them out of aluminum. And so he talked his boss into making canoes. And somewhere along the line, he actually spun off Grumman Canoe as a separate entity. But they make canoes And at one point in time, they were made by the same parent company that made airplanes. So it's that kind of quality that goes into a Grumman canoe. My Grumman canoe is built in 1960. So it's older than I am. And it's got a little tarnish on it, but it's in perfect condition. Mark Heil says you need to take the fishing magnet on the canoe in 2021. I might. I didn't bring it last time. I might bring it this time. I just got to keep it away from my watch, obviously. Dixie Champagne says, yeah, Tippy canoe. Exactly. And Tyler, too. Daniel Kester, do you use life preservers? Absolutely. Anytime. I am, you have to trust me on that, but the orange in that picture is a life preserver. So I have one steadfast rule, and the steadfast rule is in the canoe, life preservers on. I purposely went to a place that sold life preservers and bought the best looking, most comfortable life preservers you can buy, because we've all been on a boat before when we were little kids, and someone hands you that big dorky one that goes around your neck and sticks out like this, and it's this thick and it's heavy and it smells. So I got them. I tell my friends, whoever's in the canoe, put it on. There's no question. Legally, you don't have to wear it. You just have to have it in the boat. And I'm like, no, I don't care. Wear it, put it on, get used to it. You're dealing with it. So there you go. ZKR99, I want to graft a jet ski motor onto my canoe. Okay, I'm not kidding you on this. I've looked at that, because one of the problems with a boat motor on a canoe is the balance. So the trick is, could you somehow reconfigure it to mid-engine the canoe? And so there's a couple ways you could do it. One of which is you could put a motor on the floor and run a drive shaft back to a propeller. Or you could take the power plant out of personal watercraft. The problem is that I've not yet seen any place where you can buy one of those that's been separate that you can hook into something else. I'm sure it's doable, and it's the kind of thing that you almost like might see somebody do on like a reality TV show, somebody's garage where they're gonna, put I saw some guy put a jet engine on a canoe. Didn't appear to be very practical, but he did it. And so I've actually looked at that before to see if there's even a possibility. I see you guys are having a long discussion about keto diets. Continue. I won't interfere with you. So, yeah, Johnny Knoxville says, have Elon Musk make you an electric canoe. Problem is that he'd make it look real weird. Yeah, Brian Fortune, a canoe with a jet ski motor and pumping it. Dave Beddoes, how about an electric motor? That's doable. The main thing I would like to do, though, is it needs to have some power. And so right now, I've got a 5 horsepower Honda motor, and the canoe will do 10 miles an hour, which is fun. On a river, zoom, 10 miles an hour. And you can get small electric motors, trolling motors, things like that. I want to cover ground. I want to see stuff. The canoe is not there to experience the old slow, let's go look at the, no. I like the canoe because it runs in shallow water, but it'll get you places that a bigger boat can't get you. So that's my whole thing. And I wanted to experience what Douglas Houghton experienced back in the 1830s and 40s when he was exploring Michigan by canoe. So he had people to paddle for him. So, he was cheating. So I get to use a motor. So Josh Woodland, just how about buying a jet ski? It's not quite the same. Tom says the trolling motor will not work in the wind. Well, yeah, I suspect the trolling motor's top speed is substantially below what the top speed is on a 5 horsepower canoe. Tiger Stripes, I kind of like canoes because they're so silent. Well, that's one aspect of it, but I don't have to put the motor on if I don't want to. But for instance, in 2019, I got in my canoe at the mouth of the Tequamanon River and went 16 miles upstream to the lower falls, circled around the falls for a little bit, and then 16 miles back, 32 mile trip in 4 hours, and 5 hours maybe. You couldn't do that paddling. You could not do the paddling. And now you could do it in a jet ski. That'd be kind of loud. But in a bigger boat, it would have been different. It would be doable, but so it's a trade-off, one thing or the other. Jeffrey Long, I just found a complete Sea-Doo motor on eBay for $1,300. But the question is then, how do we configure it into the boat? In other words, do we basically cut something out of the beam of the boat to where there's an intake at the front and an exhaust out the back? I mean, I don't understand how that works. There's got to be some way to do it. Ted Griezedick says, hire a mermaid. Oh, David Person says a jet ski motor would solve your ballast problem for sure. Yeah, that would. Dave Beddoes, can't imagine Douglas with 5 horses in his canoe. No, but he had like 10 Voyagers. Those guys would get like a 20-foot long canoe and put like 10 people in it. Song Yardbird have to run. Have a great evening, everyone. Thanks. Appreciate that. Yeah, Bill McMahon says jet skis suck rocks and debris in shallow water and use a lot of gas. And that would be a problem. Because the one interesting thing, like I was using the canoe in Tittabawassee River in 2019, and a couple of times we were scraping the bottom. We got out and just dragged the canoe through the shallows and got back in. And, on the canoe, I can reach back and tip the motor up. And I do that from time to time. You can tip the motor up, but you can also literally float that canoe in 4 inches of water, 5 inches of water with the people in it, and it's just the amazing places it can go, especially on rivers. It makes a big difference. Could lasso an alligator, Ted points out. Matwar, would a high volume transfer pump work? I don't know. Tiger Stripe says 20-foot long canoe. That's ridiculous. It's an outrigger. No. The canoes they used back then were called Voyager canoes. Voyager canoes. Think of the Hudson Bay Company, right? The people who were here in the 16, 17, and early 1800s who were trading the furs. And a lot of them were traveling by canoes because they were going up rivers to trading posts, but they'd also cross Great Lakes in canoes. And so they had 20-foot, even 30-foot long canoes that could hold literally tons of payload, thousands of pounds of payload. But there's guys who were paid to paddle. That's professional paddlers. That's all they did. Whole different thing. But like I said, I want to be able to go out and go through the rivers as well as go out on the lakes. So I've been out on Lake Superior in my canoe. I've been on Lake Huron in my canoe. And the last time I had my canoe, not the last time, but one of the times I had my canoe on Lake Superior, it got rough out. And if I didn't have the 5 horsepower motor, I couldn't have gotten to shore. And I did. Now, I wouldn't have gone out without the motor because I knew that, but it comes in handy. Richard Burke says the hourly cost of mermaids may prove prohibitive. The question is, what do they charge though? And is it money they want, or do they want something else? Like, I don't know, my soul? Brian Neely says there were dugout canoes that were huge, but a lot of the Voyager canoes were not dugout. They were actually birch bark and huge. It's crazy. I just read a book on the Voyagers, and the whole culture, everything about it is fascinating, and it's not taught very well, but it's very, very cool. Doug Jones, put your Peloton in and hook it up to a paddle wheel. Bob Blah Blah says you could do it with forward controls. I've seen a guy do that before. So what the guy does is he sits in the front of the canoe and he's got a control thing up front that works the thing in the back. So the weight in the back of the canoe is just the motor and he's in the front. Problem, of course, is number one, how do you yank the canoe out? How do you flip the engine up if you have to in a hurry? And there's also a couple other issues like, working the motor. I mean, you could set this all up remotely, but it would be a lot of work. David Persons, what does a Great Lakes mermaid look like anyway? All I know is they talk like a Youper. Pretty sure they say things like, yeah. Leandro Garcia, do you watch any car YouTubers like Rich Rebuilds or Sam Crack? Not a lot, but I mean, I know Sam Crack. I've been on his channel before. Very, very nice guy. Spoken to him a few times. He's actually one of the reasons I've been successful here, because he did a video with me as a guest and put a link and said, check out his channel. And it was one of the first big spikes I got in membership. A lot of people found me because of Sam Crack. I love the guy. I watch his stuff. I'm fascinated by what he does. And a couple other guys, but I don't spend a lot of time watching other car YouTubers, unfortunately. JP says jet skis and jet boats have holes with wells built into them. One side is a screen, which is the inlet. The other is a nozzle with a gate for reverse. Yes, in other words, the water pickup is into the well, and then it blasts out the back. Yeah, I'm not sure if that would be conducive to a canoe, but I think it might make more sense to run a motor, whether it's an engine or an electric motor, from the center of the canoe and run a drive shaft back. But then you got to worry about, you got to hope that you can get a bearing back that's watertight. Really watertight. Galen Urso says you can get a 9 horsepower electric outboard, 48 volt. Wonder how long I wonder how heavy the batteries are and how long they last. I'll have to take a look at that. JJCO40, do you take your canoe through the locks? I looked into that. I have not done it. It's doable apparently on the Canadian side. Because theoretically any boat with a motor on it is allowed through the locks, and the canoe's got a motor on it. Mr. Phil, 1969, says, Sam is how I found you, and I watch you more than him now. Don't tell him that. Yeah, Galen Rosa says you can put the batteries in the front to counterbalance. Yeah. JP says the watertight part of a boat is called the stuff box. Lee Harvey, I've had rollers come over the bow of a 24-footer on the Mississippi. I can't imagine a canoe on Lake Michigan. Here's the deal. You got to be really careful in a canoe. But the canoe has the outriggers, right? And so what happens is you can be in fairly rough water. And the only trick is that you got to hit the waves just right. And so a wave will be coming. You'll see it coming. And as the wave is coming towards you, you can turn like this. And what happens is the outrigger will pick it up, but the other one, the other side will dig in, and then the canoe will go right over it. And it's amazing. I do carry a ballast pump that I can, bail if I have to. And don't have to use that often. It's more just a matter of I wait till I get about inch or two of water on my feet and I pump it out. But there are times where I don't get any water in a canoe at all, except water that splashes in from how fast I'm going. Daniel Kester says he found my videos completely by accident and haven't been sorry. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. You understand that YouTube's algorithms are no accident. They figure out what you'll like and they somehow get it to you. The box that JP is talking about is the assembly in which is used to house a gland seal used to prevent leakage of fluids such as water or steam between sliding or turning parts. Yeah, and so what would happen is you'd have to drill a hole in the transom of the boat because you'd want the propeller out there, unless you were to somehow lower it and run it through a gearbox or something. But somehow you have the power that's got to somehow you got to get the power outside of the hull of the boat. So you drill a hole and you run the shaft through there, and then you have to put the shaft to be around a bearing, or bearing around the shaft, and that would have to stay watertight. And it can be done. It just, you got to be real careful, because if something lets go, that's a real bad place to have a hole in your boat. So, Hooter Snoocher on Higgins Lake is a guy with a surfboard motorized. They'll do 35 miles an hour. Higgins Lake's a great place. Higgins Lake, Houghton Lake, Burt Lake, and Mullet Lake are the 4 lakes in northern lower Michigan, all named after surveyors. Houghton was a surveyor, Higgins was a surveyor, Burt and Mullet also were surveyors. They were all contemporaries, more or less, who surveyed Michigan. So there you go. Bob Loblaw says he found me while looking for donkey gymnastics. I talk more about it than I show it. What can I tell you? The Fuse Man says I could try a caterpillar drive in the canoe. I'd have to talk to Sean Connery about that. Ramius, and see what he has to say. Although Jack, the CIA agent, would also know about it too. David Beeler, what about those V8s they use in Southeast Asia, like in the Bond movie? Yeah, you'll see some guys running some really strange stuff if you look at Southeast Asia or even South America, where they'll put motors on these really, really shallow draft, long, like dugout type things. And it's amazing that they don't sink all the time, but they don't. So Robert Lee says a jet drive would be better on a canoe. A prop could get broken. Actually, that's an interesting point, because the reason the prop doesn't get broken on the canoe right now is that it's on a shaft that's got, I forgot what that thing is called underneath the prop. Is it a skeg? I could be wrong on that. I'm going to look it up now. It's going to drive me crazy. But that thing, it hits the bottom first, and number one, you'll hear it. But number two, it will bounce the back end up. Yeah, it's a skeg. A tapering or projecting stern section of a vessel's keel, which protects the propeller. Yank that out of my thin air. But the prop is right here on the back of the bottom of the shaft, and so if it's cruising along and it's going to hit something, that will tip the motor up, and the prop won't hit the bottom as the skeg will. So there you go. Canadian Robot Lady checking out. Thank you for checking in when you did. I appreciate that, my friend. Got to go. Look forward to hearing from you pre-show, New Year's Eve. Bye, everyone. Well, thank you. Thank you. Hey, and by the way, she's here for an entire show because I think she got here before the show started. So thank you very much, my friend. Bob Loblaw says maybe we could talk about putting a prop on a weed whacker. That actually, you can just put it in and yank it right back out again, right? Robert Lee, we had a center board we could raise. That's another issue with a hole in a boat. The Mackinac barge had a center board also. So, Leandro Garcia, do you have any hours flying helicopters or small aircraft? No. I've got a brother who's a pilot, and a couple of my friends are pilots. I've been up in small planes. I've even played with the steering wheel while they let me, but I don't have any time flying, no. Richard R., how are the motors for portaging? Oh. A 5-horsepower Honda outboard motor is not designed to be carried comfortably. So I have my canoe on a trailer. I keep the motor in the truck. When I go to launch it, just before I launch it, I pop the hatch open, pick the motor up, bring it back, mount it on the canoe, and then I back the canoe in and launch it. But I have, on one occasion, launched my canoe from someplace where I could not launch it with the motor on it. So we picked the canoe up, 2 people, carried it across a beach and put it in the water. And then I went back to the truck, picked the motor up by myself, and carried it very carefully out the water and mounted it out there. And you might say, Steve, why don't 2 people carry them? It's so awkward and weird that I don't think it gets any easier to have a second person carrying it, because the entire weight is in the head unit. Okay, there's a shaft and a propeller. Having somebody carry that wouldn't make any difference. And so it's just so I've learned how to carry this thing and walk with it, and it's not comfortable. And the whole time you're going, please don't trip, please don't trip, please don't trip, because if you trip, you'd break all kinds of stuff, including the motor. So there you go. But it's past 2:30 my time. I'm going to check it. I'm going to go see how the fins are doing in their IIHL. And like I said, I will be mailing a check for $104.78 to the Friends of Felines in Defiance, Ohio. I will check back with you guys. But remember, New Year's Eve is the show that's going to start around 11:30 and we'll wind up and wrap up right at midnight. Countdown, and we'll hang out, have a good time. You should get a notice if you subscribe. If you don't subscribe, you need to subscribe. Okay? So I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.